Hey guys, it's Nick. I'm here. I'm going to be making a tutorial on how to make a space scene. I haven't yet actually made a video tutorial for this. I had a picture and text-based tutorial in the forums, which I will put a link to down at the bottom below the video here at YouTube. But I have yet to actually put up a good video showing people some other tips and tricks. And not to mention that tutorial that I had made is a few years old now, and the engine's been updated as well as my knowledge on how to do all this, so I'm going to show you some extra tips and tricks on how to set up a space scene. Now you may notice that I've already got a lot of stuff in this scene already. I've got a couple ships, camera, planet, I got some particles, sun going on, and a moon here. You'll notice I got a galaxy in the background, but I'm still using the same stars that comes with the engine because I have yet to figure out how to alter them. I know they're stored in a DAT file, but past that I'm still kind of stuck on it. The camera that's here I use with an RTS based camera flow graph that I made, which I'll also put a link down there that you can download in the forums. But the first thing that you want to go ahead and do is you want to set up your engine to continuously generate a space scene every time you create a new level. Chances are, if you need a space scene for one or two levels, you're going to need them for most of them. So that way, whenever you create a new level, you don't have to go through and change all of the settings every time. The first thing you need to do in order to do that is to set up your time of day settings. I'll open mine here. Here we go. Okay, and you'll notice on the right-hand side I've got my advanced properties toggled out. But I've got pretty much most things zeroed out, and that's going to be the way you want it. Now, I personally use the actual light that the sun would generate, but I do not have the sun created by the time of day system actually visible in the system. Meaning that, here, I can hide this sun real quick. Okay, well, it didn't hide the particle either, but just trust me when I say I'm using the light that's created by the time of day system, even though I've got the actual sun itself kind of blocked out. To do that, you're going to want to go to, let's see, Skylight, and you're going to want to set up your sun intensity multiplier and May scattering. You'll notice as I up different values how it changes the light in the scene. I didn't use any of the Rayleigh scattering, but one thing to remember that whenever you're setting all this up is that you need to set it up across the entire timeline. That way, no matter what time of day it is, it's going to be the same value all the way across. Otherwise, you're going to run into problems later on when you're trying to work with your level. But once you've got everything zeroed out and you've got the lighting conditions in your level the way that you want it, then the next thing you need to do is export to file. And I will open up and show you what that does. Oh, well, before I'll get on that here in a second, but one other thing that I want to show you, a quick way to disable your gravity in your level for your space scenes without having to do it through the flow graph for every single level is to go to your game directory, then to engine, config, cvar groups, and then open up the sysspec physics.config file. And right here where it says p_gravity_z, you can set that to 0 and save it, and that will turn off gravity. Essentially, it'll turn off downward force along the z-axis. And if you set that to 0, everything will essentially float whenever you hop in game. But the time of day settings, whenever you export that, you're going to want to come in here to the editor, and you're going to have this time of day right here. You're going to want to rename that file that it exports to default_time_of_day, and save that in here. Now there's going to already be one in here, so override it, and then you're going to want to take that same file, delete the TOD at the end, and then rename it XML. So you have two of the exact same files here. One is TOD and one is XML. And what that does is it will load the same time of day every single time you start up a new level. Now, whenever you get a material or a skybox, or a material for the sky that you want to use on a regular basis, personally, I'm just using the default stars, and the galaxy that you see is just honestly a clever little trick of putting a sphere around. As you can see, as I move closer to the edge of the sphere, you can see that decal. Now, this is not a feasible solution for in-game. As you can tell, even the slightest bit of movement, you can see the galaxy move past these stars in the background. In-game, that's going to look very bad. But for this particular situation, this level that I'm using is actually just for a cinematic, so it's not going to really matter too much. But once you get a material set up for the skybox that you're wanting to use, you're going to come in here and open up, let's see, not editor, layout. Here. You're coming here to your templates, level templates. And I haven't really got all this set up just yet for this particular build that I'm working on. But you can come in here and set the default skybox material. This is just set to the sky. That's the original skybox material. That way I can use the stars and everything. But once you find a good skybox that has your stars and nebula and galaxies and everything in the background, you'll want to set it up in here, so that way that particular skybox loads with every level. Now, I will show you what I mean by loading with every level. We'll create a new one here. I happen to know that we're also going to be working on the asteroid belt. And then in here, you're going to want to uncheck Use Terrain and uncheck Generate Terrain Surface Texture. That'll get rid of the terrain at the bottom whenever the map generates. Okay, and as you see what I mean, now that I'm loaded up in a level, it defaults to a space scene. It's the first thing that comes up. And that's going to be, like I said, what you want whenever you're working in a mainly space-based game. You can get that terrain back if you need it back for item placement and whatnot by going to your roll-up bar, going to the environment, and then click on Show Terrain Surface. It's black right now because I don't have any light settings set up, but as you can see, it blocks out the stars. It's there. When I uncheck it, it goes away. And then this will save you a lot of time in having to go through and set up your level every single time you're wanting to play around in one. Then we need to actually, I'm gonna place an object in game first, and you're gonna see that it's dark. Now I have a high poly sphere that I have loaded up to create planets and to prototype with right here. And as you can tell, it's dark. So we're going to play with those time of day settings to get some sunlight on that. That way we can get some really good lighting quality while using our space scenes. Ooh. I really should have double checked this before I started, because I don't think this is the one that we're using here. There we go. That's got to up the sun color multiplier. Now notice how the light on the sphere is yellowish, because everybody knows this red replace me has white text, and as you can see, it appears yellow. To change that, you just turn that white, it'll appear normally. And that's more like how it's going to appear when you're out in space. Even though the sun appears yellow, any light that comes off, it's mostly white. And then that's when you change the my scattering and whatnot here. Then chances are whatever space scene that you have, you're not going to want it to be illuminated from the top. And I notice I don't have a sun up there. But there's still the light coming through. That's the way I was trying to tell you. That's how the last level was set up. But we're going to go up to terrain and lighting. Now, on the lighting tool here, we're going to change this to this side so that it's more like it is coming from over there. As you can see, yeah, you can see part of the sun. I'll turn that up and show you how to make it look a bit better here in a second. But if you had a planet, that is how you're going to get some high quality light on that planet. Now the reason why I was just using the light and had a static sun model in there with some particle effects is because in that particular scene that we're going to be making that cinematic on it, the sun's going to be going nova. And you can't really animate the time of day sun in that way, so I kind of had to create my own. But let's open up the time of day once more, and then the skylight. And this anisotropy factor here will let you focus the sun. And then we're going to have to play around with some of these other settings, as I kind of found what I was happy with before and just kind of left it alone. And haven't really had to mess with it too much. There we go. Okay. I'll get us a good looking sun out there. And then say we want it a bit yellow. There we go. And now you've got your star in your system as well as your planet. Now, to do some of those planetary effects that you saw in the last level, I'll load up that other level again. Okay, now as the level's starting, notice how I have no clouds. And then now they're slowly coming in, and they'll continue to pop in and out. How that's created is through a particle. I'll show you the particles that I have set up there. Okay. Now the way this particle is set up, it's going to be a continuous particle, so it means it's never going to stop. I got 6 of them going at any given point. There's 6 different cloud textures being laid on top of each other, and they last about 50 seconds apiece. I have them rotating right now using the rotation angles right here, and I put some random rotation to kind of mix up how the clouds appear on top of each other. Now with that many different cloud textures appearing one on top of each other, some of them going faster than others, while others are disappearing, while others are reappearing, it gives you fairly dynamic clouds. Every now and then you'll notice the cloud textures kind of repeat themselves as 2 of the cloud textures kind of appear right next to each other, so you can kind of tell that they're copied, but for the most part, as they're going in and out, you can't really tell. And then the way I have them slowly coming in and out of existence over the planet is through the alpha here. I have it on a bell curve, kind of. That way, whenever the particle starts off, it's going to be completely invisible. And then as the particle lifetime continues on, it's going to slowly fade into existence. And it's going to spin a while to where you can send it or see it, and then it's going to slowly fade out. And that way you don't get really sharp animations where it appears, it pops in real quick and pops out. It's really distracting when anything in a game really does that. And then the planet itself, you can find a multitude of Earth textures online, but you'll notice some different things about this particular, like how I have the lighting set up on the planet, how the lights light up on the dark side. The ways things like that are done. Let me exit out of here. Let me open up the material editor. Okay. Go to materials, planets, Earth base. Okay. You're gonna notice that I have 4 different maps here. You got the diffuse map, which is just a high resolution. As you could tell, it's an 8,000 by 4,000 map. Now, normally I would recommend against using maps that large in a game. However, whenever you're working with space scenes, you've got significantly more flexibility when it comes to the cost of items in the game, such as high poly counts or large texture sizes, as you're not having to render terrain. You're not having to render a lot of terrain occlusion. You're not going to have to render any type of plants, flora, anything like that. There's so much that is taken out of the game that it lets you expand on other aspects. And then you also have a spec map, which essentially just pretty much makes all the water really reflective. Then you've got a bump map, which I'm not gonna say much on because I'm not sure if I'm gonna finalize it on it yet. I'm debating on whether or not I'm gonna be using tessellation or not for the bump, and if I am, then this is not gonna be the same. It's gonna have an underscore DDN at the end for the tessellation. But to get the lighting, this is the texture I used. As you can see, it's pretty much just black with a bunch of white dots. The black part is alpha'd out, meaning that it's got opacity to it. And then I just set this as the decal inside of the same shader. Now, or inside of the same material under the illumination shader. Now, whenever you use the decal under the illumination shader, that's actually a glow map. Wherever those white dots are, that's going to be the only spots that this material here is going to glow. And so what I did is I put the glow mount on a really low mount. So that way, whenever it's on the light side of the planet, the lights are actually still on, but you can't really tell on the light side of the planet because the light that's shining on it is significantly brighter. But as you go to the dark side, you can see all the lights. And that's kind of the way it would be from space. I mean, the lights coming from the planet, while they're bright enough to see them from space, they're not going to be extraordinarily bright. But then, notice how in this particular level that I have, the planet's not moving. There's a bunch of different ways you can set up the rotation of a planet. You can do that through flow graph and just use the rotate entity too. You can also actually set up the animation in 3ds Max and then export it as an animated model and just have it rotating that way. Whatever you decide to do. I mean, there's more than one way to skin a cat. You're going to be able to spin that planet in a multitude of different ways. Now, I got a lot of messages since I created that original tutorial about how to create a space scene like near Earth orbit or near planet where the terrain is right below you. Now, that's not really feasible in a scope like this, as say, even though as large as that detail map was, as I zoom in, it just doesn't look as pretty. That's because the size of this planet is still pretty massive in comparison with the rest of the game. But as you come in, a lot of people were wanting to make levels perhaps like right here. Your best bet, if you're trying to create a level like that, is to probably use a terrain and then have it really strong bump map on either the terrain or actually create an actual height map for the terrain, and then texture it as such to be right above the planet. I mean, that's a difficult situation that you're trying to make. So, I mean, I might be able to help you guys out individually if you have questions on something like that, but I haven't personally tried to create a level that close to a planet yet. That is, for the most part, the basics of creating a space scene. You're going to find workarounds like this sphere here that has the galaxy on it. But like I said, stuff like that, you need to try to keep in mind that some things are really just not going to look good if you try to go put it into a full game, like this sphere on the outside. I would never try to use that on a game. I would actually take this and create a material box. Now, there is one limitation that you have with the CryEngine when trying to create skyboxes, especially when it comes to space scenes, is that a lot of times it's going to take the top hemisphere of the level and then swap it and remap it down to the bottom. That becomes evident when you try to use decals and whatnot as well. I have yet to really figure out a good fix for that, although I am working on looking through the C++ for a solution to that. Although, as everybody knows, Crytek's C++ is kind of hard to read through. I'll get there eventually, and once I get it, I'll share it with you guys. But hopefully this answers a lot of the questions that I've been getting. I've tried to cover as much as I could. If you guys have any more questions, go ahead and post it in the forum, and I will see you guys later.